No price talk and no Lambos. This is not another crypto podcast. Welcome to Ignition. I'm your host, Gillian Gotzel, and each week we will be looking at the problems solved by blockchain. I'll be going deep with the people building the apps and communities which are changing the world around us.
I have a very interesting guest. It's going to be quite a techie show, actually. So I have a real love for tech. And with me in studio, Sharif Bouktila, who I'm pronouncing it totally wrong.
That's pretty good.
Oh, I'm getting better. Oh, good. I'm practicing. Great. Sharif Bouktila, who is the CEO of EOS Dublin. So welcome to the show, Sharif.
Thanks, Gillian. Great to be here.
Yeah, it's really cool. We've got 28 minutes, the song in the middle. We're going to talk about technology making a difference. And I mean, we kind of know, like the wheel made a difference. The internal combustion engine made a difference. The internet made a difference. Mobile phones make a difference. So we know that technology is making a huge difference in our world today. But the technology we're going to look at is really exciting. And it's called blockchain. And when people hear blockchain, they say, oh, what is it? What is it? And then sometimes I say, well, it's the transformational technology that underpins cryptocurrencies. And they go, oh, Bitcoin. And the next thing they say is, Bitcoin, oh, Ponzi scheme. Or do I invest? So it's all quite confusing. So we're not going to talk about Bitcoin because it is the original blockchain, but it's not relevant in terms of the technology in that sense. I mean, it's when the price goes, I think it went over to 9,000 there overnight, whatever. So when the price moves, there's a lot of excitement for sure, but it's much more than just the price of Bitcoin. Would I be right in saying that?
Yeah, so I think that's a good way of putting it. And the price is never something that really interests us in the EOS space. We're more interested in the technology and what you can do with that technology. I suppose the first kind of question is, what is blockchain and how does it?
That's a very good question because people, I say they think Bitcoin, they think cryptocurrencies, which it is all an integral part of it. But blockchain, what is blockchain? How could you describe it in the most simple way?
So in the most simple way, it's a new way of building technology, a new way of building applications, so that anybody who is using the same platform trusts all of the transactions that are in that platform. So if me and you are doing a small transaction and you're fixing my house, for instance, I know that you've bought the parts in order to fix the house so that when you send me a bill, I can trust that that bill is for those things and I make that payment to you. So at the fundamental layer, it's about trust, that the transactions in there are real and they can't be changed. And what that gives us then is the building blocks to build really interesting stuff. So you can have lots of people engaging in different types of transactions, all trusting each other and all passing value around without anybody in the middle. So no banks, no intermediaries to process and to take fees during those transactions.
And I guess that's why people get a bit scared, or it's not so much people get scared, but you have the status quo saying it's a scary thing because those institutions that are going to be affected are things like banks, and banks, as we know, control the world these days, and governments. So they're quite threatened by this new technology because they're not actually needed anymore.
So I'm not one of these people that buy.
You're not.
I'm not one of these.
Anarchist.
You said it, not me.
I'm a bit of an anarchist, I've decided.
Yeah. So I don't believe banks are going away. I don't believe that this technology is going to fundamentally remove the need for these institutions and need for these regulations. To me, it's just a tool to do things slightly differently. And it's a tool that kind of empowers individuals and smaller communities to engage in projects and to build things, to add real value and to make their own world a better place and the world for everybody else a better place. So that's kind of ties into your show title. Mm-hmm. While it is true that in some countries, the use of cryptocurrency is rising because their own currencies are starting to devalue. So Venezuela, massive amounts of inflation. If you hold their currency next week, it's going to be worth less. It's going to be worth less. So they're adopting harder currencies, and cryptocurrency is one of those harder currencies.
Because traditionally they would have opted for dollars, wouldn't they? That would have been the alternative. Because if you think about the Weimar Republic, people pushing along wheelbarrows full of money. What was it then? What was the mark, the German mark, whatever it was? And now you're right, Venezuela. It's kind of strange for us to think about it, but the currency it's worth nothing.
Yeah.
Same in Nigeria. It's gone like 90% inflation or deflate, whatever way it's gone, but it's worth nothing. It's kind of scary to think. I mean, we've always known here, obviously, between here and the UK, with the punt and the sterling, that we monitor it because it's our close trading partner. But it's quite scary to think that if we were still using the punt here, that it was worth nothing. That's quite a scary concept. So people are naturally going to look for other ways. And cryptocurrency, there's more than one cryptocurrency, isn't there?
Now there's, thousands of cryptocurrencies, and the barrier to creating these has dropped to almost zero. So any community or any small group of people can create a token. They can agree what the maximum supply is, and then they can agree to use that as a means of trading amongst themselves.
And it's not that strange. If you think about it, we accept things like air miles as a currency, or if you buy a card for a shop, a reward card, you can exchange that for other things. People do actually swap, reward cards for M&S, whatever. Yeah. There's a town in the UK called, I think it's called Britain. No, it's not Brixton, but something like that. They brought out their own coin. It's a limited number of them, and the idea is that when you spend money, you get rewarded in their local town, and the money stays in the locality. So it's very clear. This is people, and they just printed a certain number of these coins. I mean, like these notes. So it's kind of, so money can be anything. I think people get fixated on the idea it has to be issued by a bank or by a government. Not so.
Well, if you think about it now, you can walk into most shops and pay with Apple Pay or Google Pay with your phone, and you never see. You can literally transact in Dublin now all week long without ever seeing any cash. You don't need cash to park your car. You don't need cash to buy a cup of coffee. So that digital money, people are becoming more and more comfortable using it. So adding these kind of crypto tokens or cryptocurrencies isn't that far of a leap than it would have been 5 years ago. There's an interesting project in Belfast, and they're trying to do exactly that, have a local coin which people can have on an app, and they can only spend it in local businesses that use local suppliers. And it's just trying to create that flywheel of commerce that makes their local community better. So if they can do it in Belfast, we could do it in Dublin, or we could do it in Cork or Galway or Sligo or Carlow or any of these places that are looking for ways to generate commerce and trade and keep trade local. This tech enables all of that.
It's interesting. I think when someone was trying to just describe, how do you exchange value peer-to-peer, and how is it safe? And someone gave the example that if you go into a shop and you have your credit card and you want to buy something, and the shopkeeper puts it into his machine, and he goes back to the bank, this is the intermediary, and the bank says, yes, you got enough money to pay for the purchase. He puts in the amount, and then bing, the money's taken out of your account. So there's that trusted intermediary. That's why we use traditionally. But because now it's on the blockchain, which is immutable, which means it can't be changed, when you put your card in hang on, I'm going to get lost in the explanation now, but the amount is registered on many, many, many nodes, many computers. So you can't change them all. So that's how it's immutable, because it's not just one machine. It's not one centralized machine. It's a decentralized loads of nodes, thousands of nodes.
So it's trusted. So there is words like immutable, but they don't really make sense to normal people. The balance on your phone or on your screen, you can trust that it's right. So if I was to send you one crypto token, or EOS is the one that we use, you'll get it pretty much instantly, and that's yours now. Nobody else can take that away from you. And I didn't need anybody in the middle to process that transaction. So we're sitting across the table from now, and that's kind of interesting. But if the two of us were in the same bank, I can send you 10 euros and you get it instantly. But if I was sending money to somebody in Kenya or somebody in India, to try and do that now through traditional methods will take a long time and cost a lot of money. Using these public networks where everybody can trust the transactions means that I could send, $5 or even $2, really micro payments, cross borders to the other side of the world, where that money could have a real impact with no fees, with pretty much zero fees. And I think that is cool. That's a game changer.
Because I understand from reading reports that the largest amount of money moving from the developed world into the developing world is remittances, what you're talking about. And those are ordinary people who've left their family behind. And I know when I lived in Singapore, I had a nanny for my child, we went there for 2 months, who came from the Philippines. And we looked after her very well, but she still left her family to come look after my baby. And it was the way it was set up there. It was how it worked. But it was horrible. I was not happy with that situation, because she had small children at home. She'd come out to leave. And when we paid her, it probably took her ages to get the money back to the Philippines, because we paid her in Singaporean dollars, and then it can take up to several weeks, and there's huge transaction charges on them. And it doesn't need to be like that. It could be instant. So for somebody relying on that kind of money to feed their family, it could be instant and not. So that's a huge game changer for a huge population.
For huge swathes of the people. So the real game changer on this is it's about the 3 billion people that don't have bank accounts. It's about the 3 billion people that don't have access to, they can't put €1,000 into a bank and know that it's going to be there next week, because if they put it there, their bank might crumble, or there's just not that trust. So I think that change is coming from the developing world, and they're adopting this technology much, much faster than, we don't really have a need for it here in Ireland. As I say, you can go and buy a cup of coffee using your phone with Apple Pay. In these countries that do need it, they are embracing it, they are building it, they are engaging with it, and they're really, really taking it to new heights. Although it's not using blockchain, one of the most used currencies in Africa is in Kenya, the M-Peso, which is, digital phone credit. So basically they worked out that by sending phone minutes to each other, that was a record of account, and they're doing all sorts of transactions using that.
Because it's hard for us, again, to appreciate, living as we do in Ireland, that if you don't have a bank account, I mean, how do you can't buy a house, that's for sure, but how do you even borrow enough money? Maybe, you're before you get paid weekly, or you're paid on a casual labor or whatever, and you need money to buy, milk for your baby, milk powder for your baby or something like that, or nappies. And you can't, how do you get that money if you don't have a bank account? It's so incredibly difficult to think you have to barter the whole time. And this is a huge game changer for people. And also, I was at a conference in Cape Town earlier this year, and it was actually a banking conference, and a lot of the men were talking about, mostly men, banking the unbanked. And that was the whole theme, because especially in Africa, as you said, a lot of people don't have bank accounts. But there was some blockchain guys, and they said, no, we want to unbank the world. These anarchists coming in. But it makes sense. Why would, how in developing countries, they skipped the landline. They have mobiles. So they went straight from no telephone, telegraph.
Straight to 4G in some places, yeah.
And that's amazing. So, you don't have to go through all the pain of the inner thing, go straight to the new thing. So the same way, you don't have to necessarily go bank these people into traditional banking systems, or at least taking up on your earlier note, not that banks are going to go away, they're going to be better, because right now banks do not serve us particularly well, and they're all looking at the bottom line and the dollar. So this is a way, if you're a bit of an anarchist like I've become in recent years, I want them out of here, I want them gone, because I think they've done so much damage. However, if you are more sort of a more moderate thinker like you are, you could say, well, do you know what, it'll make the banks stand up and be
they'll have
accountable.
To compete. They'll have to compete.
Yeah.
So at the moment, the banks in Ireland haven't had much competition.
Not at all.
There's headlines over the weekend of mortgage rates that they're charging far in excess of European averages. What this technology does, as people start to use it more and more, is creates competitive forces for everybody, for the banking institutions, for the payment processes, for everybody in the system, where for the longest time they were sitting on their laurels, and they were, they were monopolistic, and they were doing whatever they wanted to do. These new types of tech, where people own their own data, where people own their own currency, where people own their own money,
it's going to shake up the system.
They're going to have to compete.
It's cool. And now I want to hone in a bit closer to the actual work that you're doing. Sharif, you are a block producer for the EOS blockchain. So that's a lot of big words for people, right? So I think people understand with the Bitcoin blockchain, there are miners out there. They understand that concept. I think that there are people who are mining, who are recording all the transactions, and they get rewarded in Bitcoin. You are like a miner, but on the EOS blockchain. Only you're nicer, isn't that how you describe?
I love that line, like a miner but nicer. So maybe I'll talk a little bit about what EOS is and why we think
because it's people say what that's a funny sound. What does it mean? EOS, it's blockchain. What does that mean?
Why we think it's important. So to try and create an analogy, EOS is it's like a fiber powered blockchain, right? So this is a high performance, high throughput technology layer that you're able to build real applications on top of. You're able to build social networks on top of it. You're able to build payment processors, real stuff that real people use every day, where the more traditional blockchain projects, they have a slower architecture. And because of that slower architecture, they have limitations as to what you can do with it. So what makes EOS different, and there's a couple of other kind of variations on EOS or different flavors of it. What makes it different is it's run by people, and it's run by known people.
That's a big difference, isn't it? It's not these unknown miners, whoever they are, they're kind of scary. These are actually real people like yourself. You have an office, you have a number, you have a face. You are here today in studio. You're real.
Yeah,
I can vouch for you.
so people can come and meet us at events. We've got a company, we pay taxes. It's a business. It's an enterprise, and because of that, the trust on the network is essentially the trust in the people who are running the network. And we've figured out a way to choose who gets to process the transactions and then who gets to verify the transactions. And it's only once all the transactions are verified that you get that green tick to say, this transaction is trusted. It's not changing. It's not being reversed. So that all of these projects can, or all of these people can, trust that and move on to the next thing. So the EOS blockchain itself is about a year old. It had its first birthday kind of last week. We got involved about 18 months ago as the technology was starting to be developed.
That's the question. I mean, if I can just go backwards a little bit. How did you get involved in the first place? Because, it's such a new technology. Were you playing around with blockchain or cryptocurrencies before EOS? Or?
So I'm in the technology space for about 20 years and I've done lots of different projects for lots of different companies. Was really interested in blockchain, but never really saw it as being an enterprise type project. I kind of thought it was, niche, and there was kind of guys playing around with it. EOS was the first technology that I said, actually, this is what's needed in order to build those, world-changing applications.
And I think part of the thing too as well, when people talk technically about blockchain, they say it's slow and it's expensive. Where EOS is the name. This is neither of those two things.
So this is fast and free for users to use. So about 18 months ago, I was looking around Dublin to see was there any meetups or any other people, getting involved in this tech to kind of meet and learn about it. There was nobody. So I started the EOS Dublin meetup initially just to see if I could meet some like-minded people, and we'd go for a couple of drinks and we'd just talk about, the technology, what we thought about it, whether it was interesting or not. And then I started getting more and more involved in the EOS global community, and it really is a global community. I mean, there's people doing the job that we're doing in every corner of the world, in Africa, in Asia, in China, in America, South America. And it was mind-blowing the amount of talented people, technologists, programmers, system designers, project managers, everything, that were investing their time in this project for free, for no promise of rewards, just to try and build something that was, interesting and something that was, essentially world-changing or something that was important. So we registered as a block producer here in Ireland. We thought that, Ireland being essentially the Silicon Valley of Europe, we needed to have a voice in this, groundbreaking tech. And since we were involved in the launch of the main EOS network, and for the last year we've launched several other blockchains with slightly different flavors. Some focused on the financial or the fintech area, some focused on the startup area, and we are in the process of launching a European specific GDPR compliant, not to get too technical.
We're going to talk about that too as well. Come back to that,
blockchain. And our focus is really, the way I see our role at the moment is in the same way as the internet was starting, probably 20 years ago, maybe a little bit before then, it was starting to really grab a hold. There was all of these internet service providers starting to spring up to build the tracks for the railway to run on. I see our role and the block producer's role in these EOS networks as laying the foundations and laying out the real low-level tech that interesting stuff can start to get built upon.
Yes. And then just talk about the GDPR. GDPR is, of course, the privacy law that's been brought in across Europe, in the EU, and anyone who does work with companies in the EU. So it's actually a global regulation. And GDPR is about the ability to be forgotten, the right to be forgotten. Now, blockchain is immutable, which means that things can't be erased on it. So you're bringing up at this project, but it's an enterprise level project. So you're going to have all the good things about blockchain, but you're going to have it in a GDPR compliant format.
Yes.
Yes.
So, and how do we do this is for another show, a deeper show. We're launching a GDPR compliant blockchain from the 1st of July, and real businesses will be building their applications in a decentralized, robust, resilient way, but also in compliance with the GDPR regulations.
Mm. Well, what I think is interesting, actually, just in our conversation, I tend to go off a bit on a flight of fantasy about changing the world, making the world a better place, which I really enjoy. But I love talking to you because what you're doing is it's enterprise level development and thinking and business, but using all the benefits of the blockchain technology. So it's making a difference in a real way, because you're saying you're not just, flights of fancy. These are real projects and real trains that are coming down the track at us, literally.
Yeah, real businesses doing real things in a different way that real people will use. They won't know that they're using blockchain. They'll just know that it's better, it's faster, it's cheaper, it just works.
Well, thank you so much today for explaining what blockchain is and how your version, the EOS Dublin, the EOS blockchain version works. My guest today has been Sharif Bouktila, who is the CEO of EOS Dublin, and he's talking about technology making a difference.